Hi everyone, Sal Khan here from Khan Academy. Happy International Women's Day. And in honor of International Women's Day, we have a special guest, someone who I know quite well, Khan Academy's Chief People Officer, Regina Ross. We're going to talk about her journey and careers and developing careers as a woman or as anyone. But before we jump into that conversation, I'll give my standard announcements. First of all, a reminder that we are a not-for-profit at Khan Academy. So if you're in a position to do so, please think about going to khanacademy.org/donate. Donations of all size make a huge difference. Also want to give a special shout out to many folks who supported Khan Academy, especially when the pandemic hit, and I think we're finally surfacing from it, but allowed us to really do things like Homeroom and provide support for almost 3x the users that we were seeing when the pandemic hit. So special thanks to AT&T, General Motors, and Fastly for that, and all of our other supporters who really keep Khan Academy going as a not-for-profit. And last but not least, a reminder that there's a podcast version of this live stream available wherever you get your podcasts, Homeroom with Sal, the podcast. And now with that, I'm excited to introduce you to Regina Ross, Khan Academy's Chief People Officer. Hey, Regina.
Hi, Sal. I'm glad to be here.
So before we jump into questions, I'll remind everyone, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or I believe we're actually live streaming on LinkedIn today, post your questions. Our team members are going to help surface it to me so that I can get it to Regina. Topic is about leadership, about managing organizations, et cetera, et cetera. But Regina, I always like to start pretty early in people's journey. If you could tell us a little bit about what you were like as a kid. Where did you grow up? Did you think you would be a chief people officer one day? Do you even know what that is? Tell us a little bit about what you yourself as a child.
Very interesting question. So I loved and thrived in the academic setting. I was a nerd, a smart kid, loved school. My father was in the military, so we did travel a bit. But then we landed at home in Montgomery, Alabama, and that's where I went to school, graduated there. I was part of the gifted program throughout elementary school, and I loved math and science. And so this really led to my journey into engineering. Did you know you knew I was an engineer, right?
That's why one of the reasons why, one of the many reasons we definitely connected on that.
Yeah. Yeah, love to travel. And let me just tell you the story. So I was really adept at math and science, and I had a high school chemistry teacher who says, "Hey, Regina, you should attend this Minority Introduction to Engineering program, MITE program." It was a 2-week introductory program at Auburn University. And that really opened my eyes to the world of engineering because I really didn't know what an engineer was. So I was able to explore different disciplines of engineering, and I landed on industrial engineering because I love the intersection of people and processes. So I attended Auburn University in Alabama. Didn't want to go too far away from home, but just far enough away. Graduated summa cum laude and started my engineering career. And Sal, I tell you, even though I did engineering, continuous process improvement, mostly in manufacturing, I did transition into operations leadership, sales leadership. I was a regional logistics manager. I have always had a passion for helping people develop. And maybe it's because of the way that my chemistry teacher took an interest in me and like, hey, you can do more. So that's been my passion for employee engagement, leadership development. And I was eventually tapped on the shoulder. I was an operations senior leader at a big box retailer. And they're like, hey, Regina, we want you to step into HR. And so because of my culture focused leadership, I took the role and I fell in love with HR. I say that I crossed over to the dark side and I haven't looked back. And the thing about HR that I love, Sal, is it really enabled me to focus on connecting talent and culture to the business outcomes. One thing you didn't know is when I was a junior in college in my engineering, pursuing my engineering degree, I wanted to shift majors. I'm like, I want to do something to help people. I was thinking of being in ministry or being a nun, something. And my mom's like, no, you're going to finish your engineering degree. And so it was, me stepping into HR years later, like, okay, I get it. I'm able to help people. I'm able to drive business outcomes and just seeing that connecting of my passion and my purpose. I love what I do.
There's a bunch of really interesting threads there, and just to connect the dots, because obviously there's a lot of young people watching this, probably young men and women watching this, probably trying to figure out, okay, is this an interesting path for me? How do you navigate this? I know in high school, college, everyone has a lot of angst of like, what am I going to do with my life? And it sounds like you found this passion for math and science fairly early on. I think it
Hmm.
helped that you had other people believe in you. I definitely resonate with that part of your journey. And then industrial engineering, which I don't think a lot of people know, but to your point, it's kind of like, how do you optimize a factory? You know,
Hmm.
you click on a button on Amazon. Now, how do they
That's
figure out
right.
how to put the right thing in the right package and get it to the right place? Process design. So it's pretty broad,
Hmm.
the set of things. And then you went into what you kind of called operations, but that would be more of like, it still is process for people in a lot of
It
ways.
is. Hmm.
And then you went into HR, human resources, and I think this is something. I think I was naive initially when I was coming straight out of college. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go work for a software company, and that means that a software company does nothing but write software. What do all these other people do? And I've now realized when you have an organization, human resources, the people function, its core, because it's all about people doing everything. So how do
Absolutely.
you think about people operations or human resources to someone who was naive like me in my early 20s?
You know what? That's what it is. And I was so fortunate, Sal, when I started at a particular company. I won't say the name, but I started as an operations leader. So this is when I'm leaving my engineering career, going into operations leadership at a distribution organization. And as a senior leader, I had to do some onboarding. And one of the courses was thinking like an HR manager. Like, what? I'm not an HR person. But the way that they put it together is that you're not just leading or managing your business processes, you're leading and managing a team of people who make it happen. And I had some great mentors who taught me, Regina, if you take care of the team, they will take care of the business and take care of the client. And so this is why I think I had this culture focused leadership mindset and approach that, yeah, I'm an operations leader, I'm an engineering leader, but at the end of the day, it's taking care of the people. And Sal, when I stepped into my first full-time HR leader role, the dots really connected, and I saw that potential of really focusing full-time on helping the culture and the people deliver on the business priorities. And I will tell you, the Khan Academy job posting that I saw, it really resonated with me. And so I didn't have a background in nonprofit. I didn't have a background in the educational industry. So when I saw the job posting, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be a fit. But there was something in that kept pulling at me. And I'm just going to read this verbiage that was from the job description. It said that this role was to help foster a high performance culture and a great place to work that enables employees to deliver their best work towards attaining Khan Academy's mission while fulfilling their personal aspirations and career ambitions. Drop the mic. That was it for me. I was sold.
No,
And
it's
that's what
funny.
I'm doing. That's why I'm so excited to be here. And it's not, so I love Khan Academy. I love what we do, and my kids. I use Khan Academy with my kids because even though I'm an engineer, they struggle with math and science. I'm like, go figure. But I know of the benefit and the beauty of this product and what we do. And when I saw this, like the mission, and then me and my role in people operations, and actually this statement that I just read, this is now our people operations team mission statement about really fostering that high performance culture, a great place to work that really does enable employees to deliver their best work. And so I'm just excited to be here. I love what I do, and I love Khan Academy.
No, I think there's a little bit of lesson in there, which is, one, your journey already took a couple of turns. And even in that
Hmm.
last stage before you came to Khan Academy, there was a little part of you said, well, I've never worked at a non-for-profit. I wasn't
Yeah.
in education, but this thing really resonated with me. So you were able to kind of not feel imposter syndrome and say, I'm going to
Hmm.
try it. And as we all know, we were excited to hire you. But that reminds me of, I could have never guessed that I would have been in this
Hmm.
role either. I remember in business school I went to, they didn't really fail anyone, but if they did fail someone, they give one, twos, and threes in a class. And the only class that I got a three in was called social entrepreneurship.
No
because
way.
I was so cynical about the not-for-profit
Wow.
sector back then, and fate, destiny, whatever irony would have it, that this is, I plan on doing this the rest of my life
Hmm.
now. So I think everyone's life takes these twists and turns. I am curious, and I always like to get into the head every now and then. Or pretty commonly, I meet people, teenagers, or people early in their careers, and there's so much uncertainty of what they want to do with their life.
Hmm.
If you could go back in time, or at least to send a message back in time to 20-year-old Regina or 30-year-old Regina, what would you tell them?
Yes, and I'm glad you asked that question because I have spoken to like my kids, and other young people that I'm, mentoring and trying to help. So my tips, one would be to try different experiences versus, just sticking with only one thing and only doing what you know well. So I've been in engineering, I've been in operations leadership, I've been in transportation, I've done sales leadership. I don't like that. I don't want to do a sales leadership. But it helped me to understand what I liked and what I didn't like, what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. The second thing I would say is build and leverage a really strong support network. I call it a personal board of directors. So you have mentors, sponsors, advisors. My career, I wouldn't be where I am were it not for like my chemistry teacher, who I'm still in touch with. People who taught me strategic planning, people who taught me the unwritten rules of the road in every corporation that I've been at. And so leverage that support network. One thing specifically for women is that we tend to build the relationships, but according to How Women Rise by Sally Helgeson, is that we don't leverage those. We think it's, not good for us to reach out and ask for help. So we've got to build our network, leverage the network. I would say another tip or lesson learned throughout my career is excel at the right things. So I can't be perfect at everything. I know that I'm good at, project management and some things. I'm not so good at, maybe email management. And so it's about excelling at the right things, focus on what matters most. So particularly when you go into an organization, you're building your career, find out what's really important. I've seen other women, and I myself have fallen into the trap of sometimes just being heads down and just trying to get a lot of work done. And you burn the candle at both ends, and you're trying to do a lot of work, but you're not focusing on what really matters the most. Another tip is know your worth and advocate for yourself. This is something specifically for women. And there's a lot of studies, but one in particular is Women in the Workplace by McKinsey and Lean In, where there's just a gap, right? And this is why we're celebrating on International Women's Day, hashtag break the bias. So know your worth, advocate for yourself. Typically, men will negotiate when it comes to salary time or for promotions, and women we don't. And so it's just really important to make sure that you know what it is that you want, that you advocate for yourself, you prepare yourself for that journey and for those greater things. And this one, Sal, is so important. I think this last one is really defining success on your own terms versus just avoid the comparison trap, because my journey may be very different than someone else's journey, and that's okay. I have taken a lot of twists and turns in my career. And in my development, I wasn't really focused on chasing the title or the promotion or, making this move here. It was about me and my experiences, my total quality of life. And so I'm thankful and grateful for where I landed. But I tell you, there are times where I look to the left and look to the right, like, oh, I should be at this level by now, or this person is doing that. And I just really had to, hey, let me define success for myself. One thing I would say for younger people is that they think they've got to have it all mapped out early on, and you really don't. My kids struggled with this. They were stressed out because maybe as a junior in high school, they didn't know exactly what colleges they were going to go to and what they wanted to major in. This is a tool that I found maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but it's a Japanese concept called ikigai, a Japanese term that means reason for being. And I wish I had this years ago. But what it does in this ikigai, it's like a Venn diagram where you're looking to find that intersection between what you love doing, what the world needs, what you're good at, and then what you can be paid for. And so when you find that intersection, that's that sweet spot or that ikigai, your reason for being, where like, okay, I'm doing what I love. I'm doing what I can be paid for, because some people want to do a certain career, but then they can't make a living at it. And so if you can find that sweet spot, you are golden. Even if you can't find that sweet spot in one job, and this will be the last thing I'll say, Sal, and turn it back over to you. One thing I learned from one of my managers when I was a young engineer was, Regina, you may not find everything that you need and get everything you need out of this job. So make sure that you have other outlets for your talents, for your interests, for your passions. And this is where, you get into volunteering, or you do some things on the side that are really, that fuel your passion, so that you're not getting frustrated because you expect to get everything out of that one job or out of that first job, and then you realize that you're not getting everything that you want. So those would be my lessons to the younger Regina. I wish I would have known these things years and years ago.
I love it, and I mean, I'm just to summarize it, because I think you could write a book about this, Regina. Personal board of directors, but don't just have them, leverage them,
Yes.
um, advocate for yourself. I do have a follow-up question about that, because I think that's an interesting thing for a lot of folks, men and women. But to your point, it
Hmm.
might be even a bigger tension for some women. But advocate for yourselves. Find do things sustainably so you don't burn on both ends.
Hmm.
Find your own swim lane. That's one I strongly, strongly believe in. I wasn't
Hmm.
really happy on my career side until I had my own. Now I have a very my own swim lane. I was in a very competitive swim lane before as a hedge fund analyst, and no matter how much you succeed there, when you define yourself by comparison in that swim lane, you're just never
That's
going to be
right.
happy. So I love that swim lane. And that last piece is, I often give a version of that to a lot of young people. Is just, yeah, make sure you always have room for your passions. No
Hmm.
one job is going to be able to
That's
check all
right.
of the boxes, and so you're kind of overloading it and then making it unsustainable if you project
That's right.
everything, if you project on everything onto it. What one question, this is something that I've struggled with in my own career. And you mentioned this is especially important for a lot of young women, is to advocate for yourself. And it's often hard when you're in the moment to say, how hard do I advocate for myself? How
Hmm.
hardball do I play? Because
Yeah.
there is a point where if you play too hardball, people say,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, like, and I've often seen this even at Khan Academy. Like at Khan Academy, as you know, we take great pains that we say, look, if someone's going to be doing a job at a certain level, this is what we're going to pay them. And
Hmm.
we have gotten in the situation where, someone's told us their comp expectation is X, and we're like, well, this job, we're going to pay you more.
Hmm.
So it's, we're not negotiating. We're going to try to pay everyone what's fair. Because even though you could probably get away in the short term with paying someone less if they thought that that's what they were worth, at some point they're going to ask their friends. They're going to
Hmm.
realize that they were being
That's right.
undercompensated. And even the people who are going to be paid more for that same job are like, wait, this isn't a fair place. Maybe I'm also getting taken advantage
Hmm.
somehow. So as an organization, it's, I think, super makes sense to pay, if people are doing the same level, same performance, same job, um, pay them the same and be transparent about it. But sometimes we have had situations where people are like, well, I need to negotiate harder, and we're trying to be very transparent, saying no, we
Hmm.
literally give the same pay. So we don't want to be based on negotiation. So what advice do you have to someone where it's like they want to negotiate, they want to make sure they're not taken advantage of, which I completely
Hmm.
agree, but also there could be situations where it might be less productive.
Yeah, I would say one, do your research. So be well informed, because you may be asking for a number that's just really unrealistic. So do your research, be informed, and then know for yourself, like, what is the non-negotiable. What are you willing to, and because that puts you in the power of choice. So you're not like, oh, they only gave me this and I had to accept this. And I coach a lot of young women, like, no, you're not having to accept this. You need to make a choice. Are you choosing to accept it, or are you not? And so, and maybe you want this number, and your bare minimum is like, you know what, I think I could be satisfied here. Then you make that decision of I'm going to I'm going to be satisfied here, or I'm going to push for here. And if I don't get this level, then I'm willing to walk. But you've got to have that internal dialogue and be very clear about what your limits are, what your non-negotiables are, and stand in that power of choice. So you're not feeling like they did this to me or they made me. Like, no, you have a choice. You always have a choice. Either you accept it or you don't. Right?
Yeah, no, it's really powerful. I think I think throughout life, whether it's negotiating comp, but just everything in life, it is this. I still find this tension of how much do I advocate, how
Mhm.
versus how much do I accept, or it is a hard tension. But I think I think being
Mhm.
informed is the right thing. Ask as many
Absolutely.
questions, get zero in, and then know what you really want. Know
That's
what you really
right.
want and deserve. Don't go into something if you're feeling kind of bad about it on day one. Like I
Exactly.
think I'm underselling myself. That's not
Mhm.
gonna
It's
set
not.
anyone up for success. And I'll say on the organizational side,
Mhm.
this is what we try to do. And Regina, you and I have a lot of conversations about this. How do we
Mhm.
make comp more transparent so
That's
we can
right.
give people the confidence that, because the
Mhm.
worst thing you want is to be in an organization or an environment where you're wondering all the time
Mhm.
of like,
Yeah.
well, was
Am,
this right?
am
Am
I
I
being
being
taken
treated
advantage
fairly?
of? That's right. Yeah, and you want
Exactly.
to look at the total picture of not just your base salary, but your overall rewards. Your time off, your benefits, the quality of life. The type of environment. I have been in so many environments, Sal, where we describe it as the golden handcuffs. Well, yeah, I'm getting a big salary, a lot of stock and all that, but it's a toxic environment, and so you got to look at success for you in terms of like total rewards, life experience, quality of life, all of that, and make the right decision for you.
No, makes a ton of sense. Well, we have some questions going on here. So I think this is a question that a lot of people are wondering. This is from Stephanie on social media. With the pandemic having gone on 2 years now, what advice would you give to people who are feeling burned out in their job, career, etc.?
Yeah. I really like Sal. Thank you, Stephanie, for that question. This whole ikigai exercise, like really taking that time to be introspective of what do I really want, what am I passionate about, what do I feel my purpose is, am I in a space where I can achieve that, and if not, then evaluate, do I need to make some changes? Sometimes it may need to be a job shift. Sometimes it may need to be putting some boundaries, in your personal life. But and we just don't even know. We think this year is going to be a great year, and we see, still just more emotional trauma that we're all having to deal with. Like, evaluate what you need, and then determine what steps actionably that you can take to get what you need, whether it's boundaries, whether it's getting additional help, whether it's doing something that feeds your passion and volunteering, because the answer may look very different from you, Stephanie, than someone else.
That's great advice. And Regina, these home rooms, especially when I talk to really interesting guests like you, go way faster than I ever
I know.
expected. But we're already running low on time. But maybe just if you could kind of take us out with, you heard Stephanie's question. I think at all stages of people's careers, there's
Mhm,
this like, am I doing the right thing? Yes, all
mhm,
jobs have certain things that you're not super pumped about, but it has other things that are good. How have you navigated it? When do you know it's time to switch versus time
yeah.
to just perceive what you're doing differently, or try to tweak what you're doing within the job, or any other
Mhm.
advice that you have for young professionals or women everywhere?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is have your own like personal mission statement. This is something that I learned from Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Like, have my own personal mission statement, and then continually evaluate, where am I? Am I tracking towards that, or am I not? Is the job that I'm doing, the role that I'm serving, the way that I'm living, is it in alignment with that mission statement? Am I moving towards my purpose, or am I not? Sometimes we have detours, and I just say evaluate, the pluses and the deltas. And in your current situation, do the pluses outweigh the deltas? All right. Or vice versa, if the deltas or the negatives outweigh the pluses, then it may be time for a change. And you are the only person who can determine that. There's a great person, Dr. Kim, says, if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. And only you can determine if that is enough. So, this is what I would leave you with. Evaluate where you're going. Is it enough? And if it's not, make a change.
I love that. If you could send me that quote, it's
I
obviously
will.
such a obviously true quote, but there's something about the phrasing that is it's very poignant.
Yeah.
Well, Well, Regina, thank you so much for taking the time out. I think, as everyone can tell, I feel blessed, and Khan Academy is blessed to have you as our Chief People Officer. And I look forward to going on this journey together, both helping support the team at Khan Academy in our journey to hopefully support tens or hundreds of millions of people around the world, but also be able to do things like this and share your wisdom with so many other people on the planet.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Sal.
much
I'm
for
so
being here.
glad to be here.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. I know I haven't been doing these homerooms too frequently. I'll try to do a few more frequently. It's no longer the daily homeroom, definitely when we started during the pandemic. But I hopefully you got as inspired as I did from Regina. And I got to say, as someone I work very closely with her on a day-to-day basis, I've already learned so much from her. This is one of the best things about my job, getting to work with Regina and people like Regina, and how we can then empower others. So with that. See you later. Onward.